On VAT remittance to the state between January and August, the sum of 16.25 billion was received as against the proportionate sum of 11.73 billion for the period, representing 138.5% performance. The details of recurrent expenditure performance. Our expenditure profile for January to August 2021 shows that a total sum of 127.10 billion was spent on recurrent expenditure items as against the proportionate approved budget of 115.55 billion, representing a budget performance of 109.99%. Capital budget expenditure performance. The sum of 210.65 billion was appropriated for capital budget expenditure for 2021 fiscal year. During the period under review, the sum of 95.91 billion was spent against the proportionate budgeted figure 0.31%. 2022 budget proposals. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I present to you a budget proposal of 469.495 billion to execute projects and programs of government in year 2022. This is made up of 185.357 billion for recurrent and capital 284.138 billion naira. The 2022 budget shows an increase of 85.54 billion naira over the 2021 approved budget figure. The increase is based on anticipated exchange rate gains, increase in VAT collection, and other capital receipts. There is also a corresponding improvement in our internally generated revenue generation, which gives allowance for us to capture 80% of our ongoing projects in the budget, so that none of the projects we initiated is uncompleted by the time this administration completes its tenure. It is important to emphasize that the 2022 budget is targeted at the completion of ongoing projects and new projects in critical areas of need only. Greater transparency and proper accountability in public expenditure so that citizens can always get value for money in all projects and programs of government. Creation of conducive environment for investors to operate in the state. Expansion of the state revenue base in the area of IGR, and keeping faith with the state arrears clearance framework for the period 2022 to 2024. Macroeconomic assumptions for 2022 budget. The following macroeconomic assumptions were used in the preparation of the 2022 proposed budget. Crude oil production benchmark of 1.88 million barrels per day, oil price of $57 per barrel, exchange rate of 410 naira per US dollar, national real GDP growth rate of 4.2%, and national inflation of 13%. Sources of funding. The 2022 budget will be funded from the regular revenue sources, including opening balance from the previous year. Statutory allocation, 13% oil mineral fund, taxes and non-tax revenues such as fees, fines, permits, rents, interest, dividends, and licenses. Other revenue sources include grants and domestic credits. Details are as follows. Statutory allocation including mineral and revenue derivation and excess crude, if any, 259.419 billion. Opening balance of 19.99 billion. IGR of 80 billion. Value added tax of 24.95 billion. Other capital receipts and miscellaneous receipts 85.124 billion. This brings total to 469.495 billion. Will we continue to give vent to intensive taxpayer education, as well as make improvements in tax audits and enforcement to both an expanding tax base and conducive business environment, the state government is getting more tax revenues without overtaxing the economy and businesses. And so, with fiscal discipline, efficiency and delivery spending, we are now progressing with our means and driving our economy towards achieving a long-term vision of economic participation, self-reliance, and inclusivity. The 2022 recurrent expenditure. The total projected recurrent expenditure of 185.357 billion for 2022 is proposed to be spent to meet the government's financial obligations on salaries, wages, debt repayment, and the day-to-day running of ministries, departments, and agencies of government. Details of recurrent expenditure proposals are as follows. 7.29 billion. Overhead cost, 72.098 billion. Consolidated revenue charges, 467.23 million. Social contributions, 7.8 billion. Social benefit, 5.01 billion. Domestic loan repayment, principal, 6.667 billion. External loan repayment, 300 million naira. Grants and contributions. The 2022 capital expenditure. The capital expenditure for 2022 is estimated to be 284.13 billion, chalking up nearly 60.5% of the total budget. The capital budget is in funding infrastructure development, acquisition of assets and investments in human capital. The summary of sectoral allocations of the capital expenditure are as follows. Administration sector, 13.353 billion, making up 55.94%. Law and justice sector, 2.667 billion, approximately 1%. Regional sector for 9 billion, which is 17.25%. Social sector, 55.183 billion, which is 19.42% of the capital budget, and contingency fund of 5 billion. The total is 284.138 billion naira. The increase in capital over the previous year's approved budget once again underscores our commitment to channel more resources to the growth and productive sector of our economy. Highlights of priority sectors. I will now provide highlights of our 2020 budget proposals. Roads and bridges. From Asaba to Ueli, Akubene to Agbo, Okpana to Rorope, Wari to Iri, Iseluku to Beneku, Idumujuno to Ijere, Ogume to Gulaha, Ole to Odimodin, Okorankoko to Ewu. This administration has made a great impact in urbanization, rural integration, and the provision of quality roads and bridges for the people. The sum of 105.3 billion has been earmarked for road and bridge infrastructure in the Ministry of Works for the 2020 fiscal year. But the bulk of this money will be spent on ongoing projects to enable us complete the projects that we have started. Urban development. The sum of 7.5 billion each has been earmarked for the Delta State Capital Territory Development Agency and the Warri Uwe and Everest Development Agency in the proposed 2022 budget for road infrastructure and stormwater flood control. Education. This is why we have taken the bold step of establishing 3 new universities in the state to increase the opportunities for our youths to access higher education. We are determined to ensure the smooth takeoff of these universities with the necessary budgetary support. The sum of 9.1 billion has been earmarked for the Ministry of Higher Education to execute projects in the 2022 fiscal year. In line with the efforts of the state government to upgrade infrastructure in our public schools and reduce the spate of abandoned projects, the sum of 18.9 to give fillip to our drive towards technical and vocational education, we have commenced the construction of 9 model technical colleges valued at a total cost of 20.5 billion. For now, it is safe to say that technical and vocational education in the state holds much prospect for the technological and vocational advancement of Delta State. The Ministry of Technical Education and the Technical and Vocational Board have a combined proposed budget of 6.7 billion. The total capital expenditure for the education sector is 34.6 billion. Healthcare. We are determined to implement the policy of health for all Deltans towards the attainment of the national policy on universal health coverage. In order to be able to contain unforeseen outbreak of infectious diseases like the one posed by COVID-19 pandemic, we shall continue to improve the quality of healthcare infrastructure in primary, secondary, and tertiary healthcare facilities in the state. We have completed and commissioned the Asaba Specialist Hospital with medical gas fully reticulated with supply and installation of an oxygen plant. We are also constructing an advanced diagnostic medical complex and completion of mother and child care centers which has reached an advanced stage of completion at Owali Ranikban. We will continue funding the provision of clinical school infrastructure at the Delta State University Teaching Hospital, Ogara, to position it as a center of excellence. In the year 2022 fiscal year, we are poised to conclude the following ongoing projects in the health sector: upgrade and remodeling of central hospitals at Warri, Abo, Ughelli, Sapele, Kwale, and Ole. Procurement and installation of medical equipment at various health institutions. Completion of lecture hall at the state schools of nursing, Warri, Abo, and schools of midwifery, Asaba and Sapele, and the School of Health Technology, Ufoma Ughelli. Completion of a state-of-the-art trauma center. Construction of Delta State Drug Rehabilitation Center, and the construction of a clinical school and administrative building at the Suit, Ogara. The Ministry of Health has a provision of 10.3 billion naira in the proposed 2022 budget. Job creation and youth development. As stated earlier, we are determined to continue to engage our people in productive exercises as a way of tackling the problem of unemployment, creating jobs and wealth, and thereby curbing youth restiveness. In 2022, we intend to take in more beneficiaries and improve the success rates of beneficiaries of the entrepreneurship development programs of the Job and Wealth Creation Bureau, the Ministry of Youth Development, as well as JEST and WASEP, and microcredit of the Delta State Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises Agency. We are proposing a sum of 4.85 billion for these activities in the 2022 fiscal year. Water resources. Availability of and access to potable water is a requirement for healthy living. We shall therefore continue to fund the establishment and improvement of water schemes across the state to deliver potable water to our people. We are partnering with international bodies to improve water supply in the state. We have signed an MOU with the United States Agency for International Development on implementation of the E-WASH program through the Urban Water Corporation, which has led to the construction of a new modern water laboratory. Aside from the donor support intervention in the water sector, the Ministry of Water Resources Development and its agencies are proposed to spend a sum of 2.9 billion in the 2020 fiscal year. Agriculture. The sum of 2 billion is projected to be spent by the mainstream Ministry of Agriculture and Natural Resources in 2022, while other intervention measures will continue to receive funding through the Job and Wealth Creation Bureau, Agro-Industrial Park Project, among numerous other supports for the agricultural value chain. Conclusion. In concluding this budget address, it is pertinent to point out that the 2022 budget will be the last full-year budget to be implemented by this administration. Hence, we are careful to pursue a prudent policy stance that will entrench efficient spending, curb waste, engender inclusivity, and enable excellent service delivery. Notwithstanding the present climate of uncertainty, we are steadfast in our resolve to put the economy on the sustainable path to realize its full growth potential. In short, we shall leave no stone unturned as we seek to build a strong, vibrant, and resilient economy guided by good governance and people-centric programs. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, I am convinced more than ever before that a stronger Delta is emerging. A stronger Delta where political leaders have a sense of obligation to the electorate, where public servants live up to the true meaning of their calling, where citizens are encouraged and assisted to participate in the policy formulation and decision-making process for the greater good of all, and where MSMEs are the backbone of the economy. With more and more previously unemployed youths now transitioning to employers of labor, Delta is unquestionably we have witnessed remarkable strides in all indices of economic growth that have been recognized by national, regulatory, and rating agencies. For example, the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics in its 2020 report on poverty population ratio, rated Delta as the second least poor state in the country. Evidently, ours is a shining example of what can be achieved when there is shared vision and unity of purpose. On this note, Mr. Speaker, honorable members of this distinguished House, it is now my approval. Thank you for your time and attention. And God bless all of us.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, distinguished honorable members, once again, I'm one of this House. Mr. Speaker, fellow Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa, Governor of Delta State, for further consideration. I so move.
Archibus.
With your kind permission, Mr. Speaker, can I please take up my mask?
Okay.
I'm Honorable Eriata K. Borison, member representing the good people of Ichopo State Constituency.
Those in favor of the motion as moved by the majority say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. This is a money bill, and in accordance with our rules, the bill has been read the first time. Chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business, what date? The 26th, Tuesday, the 26th day of October for second reading. Let me confirm the The second reading for the 2022 appropriation bill comes out on 26th October. These days, Your Excellency, sir, we assure you that this great house will carefully examine the benefits, the details of this budget for the purpose of transforming same for the benefits of Deltans. The standing committees of this house will earnestly engage all ministries, departments and agencies of government to ensure effective oversight of these budget functions to achieve full implementation in order to build and drive home the stronger Delta vision of Your Excellency. Once I will assure you that this House will treat this budget with prompt dispatch. On this note, distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that this House hereby expresses unflinching thanks to His Excellency Senator Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa for the presentation of Budget 2022, and I beg to move. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleague, and Honorable Innocent Emosue Anidi, representing the group of Ethiopia State Constituency, and by the grace of God, the minority leader of this great hallowed chamber. I rise in my place this morning to second the motion as moved by my great Deputy Speaker, I beg to support.
Those in favor of the motion as moved by the deputy speaker say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Ram, please lower the mace. Where was that?